It all starts in the year 2017. Here we meet Vale, or also known as Speed Run. She is a gamer girl, with dreams of greatness, who wants to one day be in the professional leagues. However, her father doesn't agree. According to that, he wants his daughter to look for a job like everyone else and start working. What's more, he even got her a job interview for that day. Evan is Vale's boyfriend and he picked her up to take her, but Vale had no intention of going to the interview, because that day began tournament of her favorite video game, and she wants to win the first prize, which is $10,000, which will be wonderful for her to move and play professionally. Although there was a problem in the competition, the pro gamer Roy, nicknamed Kill Hearts, a veteran video game legend, would also participate. Vale excited and wants to beat him to demonstrate her skills, so the qualifiers begin. The game is a first-person shooter in kill accumulation mode, and the one who makes the most points wins. The game begins, Vale and Roy give their best and they are the most supported by the public. Roy demonstrates his skills and makes enough, playing with his eyes closed. Both of them are positioning themselves on the kill table, until they remain tied. As time runs out, the one who accumulates one more point wins. Vale feels that her opportunity to defeat Roy and sets out to look for him. But Roy makes an unexpected masterful move, leaving everyone impressed. Everyone still both qualify for the final. The next day she feels frustrated, doesn't understand how he did it. She can't believe he's so good. She's worried because if he beats her now he will also do it in the final. At that moment, Roy comes out and mocks that she couldn't beat him, and then he takes photos with his fans. Evan encourages his girlfriend and walks the car. At that moment, a guy named Kojima appears and tells her that his fairy godmother can help her win the competition if she wants, so he leaves her his card, so she can look for him. Later, she arrives home, her father angry because he knows that she didn't go to the interview. She tells him that she couldn't miss the video game competition, and she had to fulfill her dream. She doesn't want a life like his. Here, that night Val decides to look for Kojima to see how he can help her. Then she arrives at a place called the Golden Saucer, which is like a gamer cafe where there are several playing on consoles and computers. Kojima appears and invites her to try a game. Then Val takes control and puts the difficult mode on to start playing, but she quickly loses. Here Kojima tells her to take this energy drink called Impulse 9. Then he serves her a little, and Val drinks it. At that moment, she begins to see everything in slow motion. Her reflexes increase and she passes the game in difficult mode as if nothing were happening. A while later, she appears in a restaurant with Mr. Kojima in front of her. Here she has no idea what happened. Then Kojima explains the whole Impulse 9 stretches time, that she will see everything slowed down, but the more she takes the real time of her life will pass very quickly without realizing it. For example, because of that small sip she drank, an hour passed until she came back, and if she wants to buy the bottle, it will cost her $500. Val thinks that is bad, like cheating, but there she finds out that Roy is also a Kojima customer, and consumes on Impulse 9. That is why he is so good at playing. Val decided to buy it, and the next day in the competition, she puts the drink on the table and Roy also prepares to win. Val takes a sip and starts the game with the hack activated. She increases the kills, quickly positioning herself in first place. When he sees this, Roy also drinks the impulse, managing to overcome Val. Val won't let herself lose, so she drinks almost all the contents of the jar that gave her the superpower of seeing everything in very slow motion, and she managed to defeat his rival Roy, finally winning the tournament. They celebrate everything excitedly, but suddenly something happens. Val appears in another place. 10 years had passed and she had a baby in her arms. Here Evan appears, who turns out being her husband. Val doesn't understand what is happening, and when she goes down the room, she meets 2 children who call her mom. She goes out to the street to take a breath and assimilate what was happening. There, she finds a somewhat apocalyptic dystopian future. She lives in a community of survivors. It seems that everyone they are poor. There is no electricity or water service. The bathroom latrines are in the streets. The air is a little toxic, so many of them must use gas masks. Val woke up in the year 2029, and for 10 years she had been in automatic mode. The community was surrounded by a wall to defend themselves from outside threats. People must collect food to survive and the children study on the street. Val wants to confess to Evan that she doesn't know what's happening, but suddenly a person interrupts them. It's the local sheriff, and they tell her that the delegate named Dan discovered a guy who had just woken up from the impulse. So Dan takes out the confused guy and takes him to the sheriff. It turns out that everything is a mess, because people like him took a lot of Impulse 9, and when they returned the world went to the hell. Even the president had also taken from the Impulse 9, and people who had taken it called them pulsers, and since they have just woken up they don't know how to do anything, so they end up taking him out of the community. They give him a spear to defend himself in the desert, and they close the doors, so he has few outside chances of surviving. Since there are beings called the Lizards of Death, Val must keep the secret that she is also a promoter or they will expel her. Val needs advice from her father, but soon she finds out that he has already died and only his ashes remain. Shortly after, Deputy Dan arrives to inform Van that she must now begin the community work, a part of being the sheriff. He is a vigilant health inspector, so she begins with washing the bathrooms, guards the entrance and open the doors, wash the clothes and pedal to generate energy. All those activities for which she wasn't prepared end up tiring. It wasn't the life she dreamed of. When she picked up her children, the little girl gave her a drawing that Evan made her. She kept it. When she gets home, she sees that her husband was pedaling to generate energy for the video game console. Since it's Free Fire night, it turns out that it was Val's favorite game. Her little eyes shone, and before going to her guard duty, she decided to play with her children, while Evan left. She cooked insects on the grill and played for hours with her children, and didn't realize how much time had passed. She even forgot that she had a guard. Her husband suddenly came, terrified, to tell her that Dan was knocking on the door, and no one opened it. For her bad luck, Dan was killed by deaf lizards. When they went to see him, he was already cold, and his wife blames Val because she should have been at the entrance to open the door for him. Val goes to her guard and feels very guilty for what had ended. At home, Evan tries to reassure her by telling her that she has been an excellent wife for 10 years, an incredible mother, the bravest and most responsible, and what happened was just a mistake. But still, she can't handle the guilt. She knows that she is not prepared for that world, much less to be the sheriff, so she wrote a letter to her husband and decided to go to the desert. The next morning, Evan discovers the letter in which she confesses that she is not the woman he really knows. She is a pulser who drank her impulse in the tournament to defeat Roy. She had just woken up and cannot handle the responsibility she has. She feels like a young woman trapped in the body of an adult, so she went into the desert to find her destiny. She might end up like the guy from a while ago. While walking through the desert, she found Mr. Kojima's business, so she entered. The place seemed abandoned. However, Kojima was still there, exactly the same. He didn't age today, but he doesn't want to tell her the secret. Kojima finds out that Val had just snapped back a week ago and laughs, but for her it's not funny since her life was ruined, so Kojima takes out an even bigger bottle of Impulse 9. The solution he gives her is let her drink it all. She gets to play her favorite game, and she will end her life doing what she loves, since she will not return, because it would be hundreds of years until she returns, and obviously she would already be dead. She thinks she has no choice, so she prepares to play her last game, but in that moment, she takes out the drawing that her daughter made of her where she said she was her heroine, and she remembers all those who believed in her, so she decides not to drink from the impulse and return to the community. When she knocks on the door, Evan doesn't want to open it because he feels betrayed. There, Val passes the drawing underneath him, and convinces him that it has not been easy for her to assimilate the whole situation, but she believes that now she could do things right and get her family back. At that moment, they're heard shots in the distance and the lizards were arriving. The alarms go off and all the inhabitants go to take refuge in the gorge, because otherwise they would die at the hands of the lizards. Val can't believe that everything is gone and no one is left to defend their home, so she sends her children with Evan and says goodbye to them. She decided to stay to hold off the lizards, and then she will catch up with them. Val prepares everything to face them. She even has the Impulse 9 bottle. Soon the lizards arrived, which turned out to be other survivors of bandits who spent their time stealing and eating people. Val discovers that their leader is none other than Roy, who tells her that she has no chance of beating them. At that moment she throws the bottle empty of Impulse. Since she had drunk it all, with the superpower activated, she sees everything in slow motion. Then the massacre begins. Although in any case, they managed to shoot her, leaving her on the ground. Roy was about to give her the last shot, but Val manages to leave him stiff. In the last scene, with her last strength, Val throws a flare telling her little girl that she saved her home and won the battle, although Val ended up dying like a heroine, and thus the movie ends.